So welcome everybody to Good Neighbours Canada's Youth Advisory Committee Information Evening. I'm just going to give you a brief overview to our charity first, and then we'll move on to introducing the opportunity of the Youth Advisory Committee. Already messed up. Here we go. So Good Neighbours Canada, for those of you who have not heard of us before, is a registered charity. We have an office over in the GCA, and we support people in need around the world. So it's an international humanitarian development agency, and we are part of Good Neighbours International, which is a multinational organisation. I believe there are 47 different offices around the world right now, and that number is only growing. And we respond, as it says here, to humanitarian crises, and then we work long-term with local communities to alleviate poverty in all kinds of ways, however that looks for the locality. Our mission is to implement projects that promote and protect children's rights, strengthen global partnerships, and advocate for human rights in a respectful and effective way, empowering people to achieve self-reliance. So maybe unlike some other agencies, our aim is community empowerment. It's not to create a system of reliance where communities are sort of dependent on our ongoing support. We're really all about that local empowerment, which, you know, supports communities to have that self-reliance for the rest of time. And as I mentioned, we are a global organisation. So Good Neighbours was actually founded over in South Korea in 1991. Our first international support program was in Bangladesh in 1992. And then since then, we have been growing and growing. And as you can see by all of these little dots, there's offices of Good Neighbours all around the world now. If you are able to see, if it's not too tiny on your screens, the green dots here, those are our fundraising countries. We're called the supporting countries. And then all of the darker coloured dots, those are the countries that us fundraising countries support. So Good Neighbours Canada is not actually connected with all of the other darker coloured dots. We currently have a few set programs which we work in very close partnership with international offices. But then each of the fundraising countries kind of supports different other Good Neighbours offices. Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. Here we go. So Good Neighbours Canada, our programs tend to change a little bit from year to year, but these are our 5 general themes of the things that we will always work on. So the first one is emergency relief. So as I mentioned, that first project overseas in Bangladesh, that was an emergency relief program, and we have always been, at the very heart of our work has been humanitarian crisis relief. So currently Good Neighbours Canada is supporting fundraising efforts for Turkey and Syria in their ongoing recovery from the earthquake. Good Neighbours International was actually in Turkey the day after the earthquake hit, and we are now moving from the immediate recovery period to implementing long-term community support, both in Turkey and Syria. We are also supporting victims of the war in Ukraine. We have an office over in Romania, and from that we are both helping people to leave Ukraine through that Romanian border, and we're working in partnership with Ukrainian agencies throughout the actual country. And then we also have a third sort of emergency relief program called Ukrainians in Canada, where we have a designated Russian-speaking case manager who is supporting Ukrainian refugee families who would like to move here to Canada and helping them with their visa and their travel, and then once they're here, sort of setting them up with everything that they're going to need to start a life here in Canada. Clean water, we currently have one program underneath this umbrella, and that is called our Wishing Well program in partnership with Good Neighbours Zambia. So the Wishing Well program, in short, is just bringing safe, accessible drinking water to rural communities who don't otherwise have it. It's something that I think honestly can be quite hard for us in Canada to relate to, is the feeling of not just being able to go into the next room and turn the tap on and have accessible drinking water right there. But in these communities, the kids of the family are the ones that have to go and walk up to 4 hours every single day to go and fetch water, sometimes from contaminated sources as well. So there's a lot of ill health and the kids have to drop out of school to go and get that water as well. And in families where there's multiple children, it's the little girls that are encouraged to go and get the water, and the boys get to stay in school. So that's something that we're really passionate about here at Good Neighbours Canada and internationally, is gender equality and equity as well. So by providing that clean water through installing hand-pumped wells in communities, we're actually also in the long term contributing to a more equitable, gender spread in the workforce in Zambia, which is also lovely. Then here we see Better Life for Girls, which is an umbrella term which currently we have 3 different projects under. So our first one is with Good Neighbours Cameroon. You can actually see that picture there is taken in Cameroon. And that is a program to support with menstrual health and education. Then we have a program in El Salvador, where we are supporting education of young boys and girls to sort of help them understand that when they grow up, they can be anything. It's very gendered, the sort of opportunities available to adults in El Salvador. The women tend to be the homemakers and stay at home, and the men will be the ones that enter the workforce. So that's kind of almost an early intervention into gender equitable work later in life, teaching the little girls that actually they can do just as much as the little boys can. And then we also have a program in Guatemala where we are supporting the education, particularly of Indigenous young girls. Guatemala has a really big Indigenous population. And when they, again, reach adulthood, Indigenous women are very underrepresented in the labour force in Guatemala. So what we do there is support them with their language acquisition. English language is a really important skill for employability in Guatemala. So we're helping them with that, and we're also helping them to sort of maintain their Indigenous culture and teaching them the Mayan language as well. Then we have child sponsorship. This gorgeous little girl here is one of our sponsored children over in the Dominican Republic. So we are now working in the Dominican Republic and Cameroon to sort of match Canadian lovely generous donors with one child in each of these countries. Well, they'll get one child that will be from one of the 2 countries. And that is sort of quite a holistic program, sponsoring children's education, access to good quality healthcare, and provision of support for the whole family. And often that looks like renovations of their house to make sure that their kitchens and their bathrooms are safe for their kids, or support for the parents to help their kids engage with their education, things like that. And that picture is actually a picture of a little girl writing to her sponsor here in Canada. So the sponsors and the children sort of exchange letters back and forth, and it's a really lovely process of when you're matched to a child, you actually get regular updates from them and sort of see them grow over time. And lastly, we have our category social enterprises. Now, this is something that we are running both here in Canada and also in support of social enterprises abroad. So we have a program called Goods for Causes, which is a sort of social enterprise where we purchase handmade, handcrafted goods from vendors here in Canada and from vendors in Guatemala, Bangladesh, the Kyrgyz Republic, and Mongolia. And that is sort of an income generation support. A lot of the co-ops that we partner with, particularly abroad, are women-led. And again, it's all about sort of supporting the diversification of income and making sure that people have a stable life. So the different international Good Neighbours offices will also be working in similar themes of these: the emergency relief, the clean water, better life for girls. Some other offices call that education and health, which we see them as kind of interconnected, child sponsorship and social enterprises. These are kind of the main themes of Good Neighbours work wherever we are in the world. Okay, so that's about us. Now about this. So we are here tonight to talk about the Youth Advisory Committee. I've written the eligibility criteria here on the left. You will notice that we've actually bumped up that maximum age to 30 due to high demand, which is so lovely from you guys. So we are now accepting people onto this Youth Advisory Committee who are between the ages of 18 and 30 years old. The next eligibility point, you need to be able to commit a minimum of 2 hours every month. And we want you to be passionate about international development and humanitarian causes, and for everything I just said to have really sparked some kind of excitement in you. So Oh my goodness, I keep skipping slides. Here we go. So every month we will be having this 2-hour commitment in the form of a virtual meeting, much like we're doing tonight. So that will involve an update on Good Neighbours Canada's work and a pitch from the project manager, myself. And then the Youth Advisory Committee will work together to come up with creative solutions to support the charity's work. So while the Youth Advisory Committee will be very much interconnected with what we do, it is sort of a standalone board, if you will, and you can make your own decisions about where you would like to take things to support our work. There are also a number of ways you can get involved in addition to engaging with those 2-hour meetings. So the first one is when you would like to pitch maybe a specific idea for fundraising for one of our programs, for example, you might be able to form subcommittees within the Youth Advisory Committee to develop a particular fundraising or awareness project. You may also join existing committees within Good Neighbours Canada that aren't just specific to the Youth Advisory Committee, to cross-collaborate not only within the Youth Advisory Committee, but also with other members of our community. So that might be our own staff or members of our board, for example, volunteers who work with us in other capacities. So these subcommittees will have sort of specific responsibilities that you would decide when you pitch them. And the durations would be set depending on what you're working towards. So imagine one of the examples that we've got right now is we are creating a fundraiser event, which is to be held in September, called Step for Water. So our Step for Water committee would be involved in that extra commitment up until September when the event is run. Then we have these specific executive team roles. Now, the executive team is the core of the Youth Advisory Committee. Those are the people that sort of keep everything running. So we have the chairperson who will lead all of the meetings, make sure that people are being held to account with the promises that they make. We have the secretary who will basically schedule the meetings, take all of the minutes, send out all of the communications. We have communications coordinator. I did just say communications, but this one is more to do with like social media and blogging and writing sort of on behalf of the Youth Advisory Committee. We have event coordinators who maybe in a similar line to that Step for Water committee that I mentioned, they will be working on creating any fundraising or awareness event you guys come up with. The advocacy coordinator would kind of work in partnership with all of these people, but just sort of to amplify the reasons behind what we're doing and spread the word, really, spread our network. Maybe it's creating an ambassador campaign where we can pull in, friends of yours, fellow classmates or colleagues or anyone that would be interested. And then lastly, we'll be having an equity, diversity and inclusion coordinator. This is something that is really important to us, not only as a staff team, but I suppose also to the work that we do, including overseas. If anyone has experience and is very passionate about equity, diversity and inclusion, that would be an opportunity to sort of give feedback to the staff at Good Neighbours Canada, as well as making sure that all of the events that the Youth Advisory Committee run, everything is sort of done in a fair and equitable way. So those executive team roles, you'll notice that for all of them except for the chairperson and the secretary, I've put like /S. So each of those can be co-managed. So for example, I could be the co-communications coordinator. I understand that doesn't look as good on a resume. You'd be welcome to write communications coordinator, even if you were the co. And in terms of the commitment for those, the first executive team, their responsibilities will be from April until September, just for like half a year. And then from the September meeting, every year from there on, we will be electing a new executive team and they will serve for a term of 1 year. So kind of in line with the academic year, basically September to the following end of August. Of course, if people choose to step down from any of these roles before 1 year, you can. And what we would do is we'd have an acting person, so an acting chairperson, for example, until they could then be voted in at the following meeting. Obviously, that does just create a little bit of disruption within the team, though. So we very much encourage you to, get involved, especially with these additional commitments. They would look wonderful on your resume, and it gives you a lot of opportunity to sort of diversify your skills and your experience. But do bear in mind that they are additional commitments. So if you're umming and ahhing about whether to apply and you think, actually, I do have quite a lot on my plate already, maybe just being a general youth advisory committee member would suit you best. Or if you do feel like you've got the capacity and you're excited to take on something additional, by all means do apply. We just obviously want to sort of keep everything running as smoothly as possible throughout the year. Oh my goodness. Am I actually gonna just go one slide at a time? Who knows? All right, in terms of benefits to you, we have got a lot of really exciting reasons to join the Youth Advisory Committee, of course. So the first one being you would be able to build your network of international development colleagues, so people working within Good Neighbours Canada. There'd also be the opportunity for those who maybe take on additional support roles to work with international colleagues as well. You of course can strengthen your resume through developing the governance and the fundraising experience working for an international humanitarian organisation, and simply by engaging with everything we do, I'm sure you will develop sort of a deeper knowledge of the mission and the values of Good Neighbours Canada. You also would have the opportunity to act as a brand ambassador for our charity. You'd be more than welcome to use our logo, and we'll have like a specific Youth Advisory Committee member badge to add to like your social profiles, your resume, things like that. You can request funding from Good Neighbours Canada to run funded events. So if you need to maybe book a space to have a talk, or I don't know, purchase some snacks, like maybe you want to have like a pizza evening or something, you could ask us and sort of pitch the reason, pitch the event plan, and as long as it falls in line with sort of our yearly budget, we would likely approve that fundraising expense. There's also an opportunity to work for Good Neighbours as a youth network facilitator with Good Neighbours International. So lots of really exciting opportunities to gain that voluntary experience on an international level, as well as here within Canada. And then of course, if we like you and a job comes up, there's the possibility of employment within Good Neighbours Canada. So all of these voluntary experiences are steps up, steps forward, and ways to get your foot in the door basically with any agency. So at any point when a position comes up that we think might be relevant for one of our Youth Advisory Committee, we're very much about sort of building our own team before offering outside. So we would always like to sort of offer those opportunities to you guys. Then after 1 year of support, so for anyone that joins the Youth Advisory Committee even next month and stays with us till the following April, we will have 2 very special prizes. In fact, so the first thing everybody gets after a year, a certificate of dedication and a written letter of commendation, which will be signed by our executive director, specifically to recognise your wonderful commitment to the YAC. And then these 2 prizes, the first one will be a cash scholarship of $1,000 Canadian to put towards your professional development. So whether that's funding a course that you're doing, maybe a little bit towards your tuition, something that can support you in your career. And then the second one would be the opportunity to participate in a short-term overseas volunteering experience with one of our international partners. So with the ones that we're working with right now, like Guatemala, El Salvador, Zambia, they're all really keen to take on volunteers. And someone from the YAC will be selected for that opportunity after 1 year. Okay, I will just walk you through the proposed timeline for how this is all gonna work. So today is the 22nd, isn't it? As of tomorrow, oh, actually, do you know what? I'm going to give it to you tonight. But as of tomorrow, for anyone that didn't make this meeting, the application form will be sent out and made available on our website and on our socials. As I mentioned, this video will be going up on our YouTube, so it will be made available online. You will then have until the following Friday, which is March the 31st, to respond to that form. The form does shut off at midnight, so if you don't make it, you've not made it. Make sure to get your application in. It's basically just your personal details and then 3 main application questions. So it's not a huge thing. It's just asking, what you can bring to the YAC. By the following Monday, the 3rd of April, we will be sending out our invitations to our successful applicants, ready for our first meeting on Thursday, April the 6th. So write that down. That one will be another evening meeting. Following that, all of the forthcoming monthly meetings will be held at a time that suits you guys. So we will then pass over to the team to sort of run availability polls and things. My assumption is that evenings will continue to work for people, but we'll see. We'll see what the group is saying. So after that first meeting, we will then open up the opportunity to apply for our executive team for those who are interested. The first meeting will just be about introducing ourselves, talking about what we're excited about. I will give the first sort of, not problem pitch, but like sort of the first kinds of things that I would like you to work on that you can format solutions to. So then the executive team applications would need to come in by the following, Friday, April 14th. And then the following week will be voting. So within the Youth Advisory Committee members, you guys get to say. So there will be the applications and the reasons that people are applying to different roles will be sort of made, not public, but public within the group. And you guys get the final say over who gets which role, because it's all sort of an independently run membership basis type group, and we elect the people that represent us. So voting will continue until the 20th of April. That executive team will be announced the following day, April the 21st. And then from that point on, dates are ambiguous because we'll be handing over to, I suppose, the secretary to organise the next one. So from early May, all of the subsequent meetings will be coordinated at a time that suits you guys. The place will always be remote via Zoom. Oh my gosh, of course, I've skipped 2. All right, so this is just where you guys can find us. So I don't actually know where people found us to register for tonight, but our main website is goodneighbourscanada.ca. You will notice we can't spell neighbours. That's because we are an international organisation and our first English-speaking office was over in the States, so we have copied that logo. We also have, as I mentioned, that social enterprise website is goodsforcauses.ca. That's our office address, that's our email address, that's our phone number, and all of our socials are Good Neighbours Canada, with the exception of Twitter, which has a character limit. So that one is Hello GN Canada. All right, so that's everything. We invite you guys to be a part of the change. If you think you are interested, write down this website. That is the link to the application form online. So we've got tinyurl.com/GN Canada YAC, standing for Youth Advisory Committee.